We have more breaking news coming into the Situation Room right now about Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. Our chief political correspondent, Dana Bash, is here. Just spoke with the president's attorney, Rudy Giuliani. Tell us what he said, Dana.
Well, what he said is that the special counsel's team has informed the president's legal team that they have concluded that they cannot indict a sitting president. Now, it has been gone along with the guidelines of the Justice Department since the Nixon era. The Office of Legal Counsel said back then that because of the rigors of the job, that a president cannot be indicted. It was actually reaffirmed during the Clinton years. However, during all of this tumult and during this investigation, the Mueller team has been debating whether or not to challenge those guidelines. And that's something that Giuliani told me. Rudy Giuliani told me that he understands that they were debating as well. But at the end of the day, he said orally, the Mueller team has informed the Trump team that they are going to stick with those guidelines, that they cannot indict a sitting president. Having said that, this does not say anything about the status of the Mueller investigation, where they're going with the investigation. And no indictment doesn't necessarily mean at all that the president is off the hook, because at the end of the investigation, we do expect a report, a lengthy report from the special counsel. And what is supposed to happen is that if there are recommendations or referrals, that would go to the House of Representatives, and then they would decide whether or not there's anything to do, impeachment or anything of the sort. So that is the status. But the fact that the special counsel and the Justice Department seems to have decided that this is how they're going to approach the Trump case is noteworthy. Yeah, that's very significant indeed. And Joey Jackson, you're our legal analyst. There was a debate whether or not a sitting president could be indicted. Now Mueller apparently has decided, at least if you believe Rudy Giuliani, that he can't be indicted, not going to be indicted. What does that say to you?
Well, you know, it's not a unilateral determination, Wolf, in terms of Mueller deciding it. It already has been decided. To Dana's point, the issue came up during Nixon, and it was a conclusion. And that conclusion is that you cannot indict a sitting president. To Dana's further point, she got it absolutely right, and that it was reaffirmed. And so the guidance at this point is it can't be done. What does that mean? What it means is that irrespective of what Mueller comes up with, there won't be an indictment of Trump. Should they be going in that direction? We don't know. It would defer to the political process. And we know that that political process means that the House by majority vote would have to vote out articles of impeachment. That doesn't end the inquiry. It then would be referred to the Senate. And of course, the Senate would have to, by 2/3 vote, convict. And so that's where the process would stand. And then thereafter, there could be some type of formal prosecution in the event that goes that far.
But it is interesting, Gloria, that Mueller has now informed Giuliani of this decision.
Well, very interesting, because I presume this was an internal debate among Mueller's legal team, and also lawyers that I've spoken with in terms of reporting this story, as we have all along, all of us have basically made the case that Mueller is a conservative, and that they have predicted that Mueller would not be likely to go outside the lines that have been drawn for him, given the precedents that Dana was referring to. I think what's interesting, actually, is that he told Rudy Giuliani that, because I'm sure the president's legal team was wondering the same thing. Obviously, there is a report, goes to Congress. If there is, for example, some finding of obstruction, that then would be decided by the Congress.
I assume, Sarah, that this conversation may have taken place in the context whether or not the president will actually sit down with Mueller and his team and answer questions. Rudy Giuliani's been handling that negotiation with Mueller's team. And maybe this was in part designed to reassure the White House he's not going to be indicted. Let him come forward and answer our questions.
Right. I think that's certainly a possibility. And to me, this does look like sort of a shrewd political move, too, whether it was meant that way or not. I mean, they obviously want President Trump to sit for an interview. So if you offer them, this notion that we can't indict the president, that might make them more willing to allow him to participate in an interview. It also might calm down a president who we know has thought frequently about whether he wants to fire Robert Mueller, who has thought frequently about whether he wants to fire Robert Mueller's boss, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who oversees the Russia investigation. So I do think we've seen the Justice Department kind of drop these sort of Easter eggs to try to keep the president calm and let this investigation reach its conclusion.
Yeah, how do you see it?
I wouldn't be calm if I were them. Let me lay out a simple scenario. Assuming we believe Rudy, in the past month, that guy's got more stories than I have socks. So I don't know if I believe the story. But I think there's one scenario, if I were the White House, I'd be extremely concerned about. There's a document, presumably after the investigation closes out, that the Mueller team gives to Rod Rosenstein. I could easily see that document lay out a series of charges against the president, but the document says, we will not bring charges against the president formally because we don't think it's constitutionally acceptable. Boy, talk about a bombshell. That will either leak or be exposed within a matter of days or weeks. So I don't think this is any indication that the president is out of the woods.
Well, you're right, but it's a big if. It's a big if, but that is exactly the point. Look, we know from James Comey's time, obviously this was just the FBI, that you can just say something about a report and it could be damaging. Hillary Clinton. And so this is going to be a whole lot bigger than that. We don't know what the conclusion is going to be at all. And I can just add, tomorrow is the one-year anniversary of the Mueller probe. It's been going on for a year.
Something very significant, though, we should keep in mind, even though he should not, that is the president, and I'm sure his lawyers are telling him this, be baited into sitting with the special counsel because, guidance says that we can't indict you anyway. Why? Because even if he didn't do anything wrong, they find no collusion, in the event he lies, that in and of itself could mean a referral in terms of impeachment. And so remember, right, let's think of the lessons in terms of Clinton and what happened with him. The fact that you sit down with the special counsel under the guise of, don't worry, because we can't indict you anyway, and then you go and misrepresent, this president has a penchant for doing so, that could expose you to impeachable defenses in and of itself, even if the special counsel has found nothing as it relates to collusion.
And that's what I was just going to say about the fact that tomorrow is the one-year anniversary, and Giuliani is saying, as are other members of the team, that they want to use this anniversary to pressure Robert Mueller to finally come to them and say, okay, what exactly this is exactly what we want to hear from the president in any interview. He's also going to be pressing to say, how much money are you spending and so forth. So this is a time where they're continuing to try to get the Mueller team to wrap it up.
But this is also part of Rudy Giuliani's plan, which is I'm not sure is the whole legal team's plan. But it is Rudy Giuliani's plan to kind of wrap this up, right? He just got in 2 weeks ago, but he wants it over. So he wants to say, okay, the president has been told, the guy's not going to get indicted. Okay, so everybody knows that. So what's the point of continuing with this thing? And
he's saying not just indicted, he's saying, this is a quote, you've got all the facts, you've got all the documents, you've got the explanations. We're happy to tell you that that's not going to change, so you don't need to talk to the president.
And I don't think Mueller's going to listen to that for 1 second, by the way. But I think Rudy coming out and telling you this is an indication of where he is, and what he's trying to do is put outward pressure on it. I'm sure we'll hear from the president on this tomorrow. We heard from the vice president already. Let's wrap this thing up. And if they don't get Mueller to move on that, then their next strategy will be, let's keep this thing going through the midterm because we don't want any bad news before the midterm. So they're going to try this first, see if Mueller responds. I believe. I could be wrong, but I believe, and then see what happens. My guess is Mueller is silent.
But the political problem they have, the White House right now, even if Mueller has told Rudy Giuliani, don't worry, he's not going to be indicted, we can't indict him. But as Dana points out, they can refer it to the House of Representatives. And there's a big difference if they refer it to a Republican majority in the House of Representatives, as opposed to, after November, perhaps, a Democratic majority in the House of Representatives.
That's right. And you can expect the president's allies will be using this in part as a rallying cry during the midterms, that you need to vote for a Republican, whether you like that Republican who's running for your congressional seat or not, because if you vote for the Democrat, they're going to try to impeach this president. They're also going to try to make the case that that's the only thing that Democrats have to run on, is the notion that they're running against Trump, that they want to kick him out of the White House, that they're not going to actually do anything to make your life better. They're just going to turn Congress into this spectacle of impeachment proceedings. And so, I do think that could potentially be a potent political argument. It rests on the notion that the people who voted Trump in the first place still want to see him in the White House, which can be a risky gambit when your approval rating is around the 40% mark. But look, the president's allies right now feel better than they did a couple months ago. They think his polls are moving in the right direction, and they certainly believe that the longer this investigation goes on past this 1 year mark, the more they can kind of use it as a political ploy.